Let's take a closer look at the comments issued by Iran's Revolutionary Guard to President Trump's comments on the war ending soon. The statement says our hands are open to expanding the war. Security will be for all and insecurity for all. We are the ones who will determine the end of the war. The statement goes on to say the regional equations and the future situation of the region are now in the hands of the Islamic Republic's armed forces, and that the American forces will not be the ones to end the war. For more on this, let's bring in Tohid Asadi in Tehran. So Iran remaining very defiant there, Tohid.
Yes, indeed. According to the statement that we heard, not just from the IRGC, but also when it comes to diplomatic sources and the Iranian foreign minister himself in particular, we hear this very strong message that the question of how war is going to be ended, when it's going to be ended, and how long it's going to be taking is something that Tehran says the question remains for it to answer, not for the Americans or the Israelis. And this is actually a strong message of defiance that we heard. Also, the Iranian armed forces are constantly saying that they are ready for a war of attrition, for a long-time confrontation, and there is this readiness militarily speaking in that regard. Also, we see as the reality on the ground that retaliatory strikes by IRGC, one wave after another, is continued, and they are coming every time with the strong messages, that the latest of which they said that they are using +1-ton warheads in the recent and next waves of their retaliatory strikes, which is quite indicative of the very fact that the situation looks far from any point of de-escalation. And also, related to that conversation, we had the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ismail Baghai, in his press conference yesterday to say that, quote-unquote, as long as military aggression continues, talking about anything other than crushing answer is not relevant. Iranians right now, we hear from different officials in Tehran, including the Supreme National Security Council, including the foreign minister, a spokesperson for the foreign ministry, the Iranian president. They're all saying that right now, as long as the aggressions, the attacks continue, talking about any negotiation or ceasefire is not going to be on the agenda. So they have sort of conditioned any potential de-escalation to halting of these strikes, which we have been witnessing up until the moment.
All right, Tohid, let's find out the reaction, the Israeli reaction with Nida Ibrahim, who's in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Israel and the U.S. are, of course, engaged in this conflict together. They launched it together against Iran. How are Israeli officials viewing President Trump's comment that the war might be winding down?
Well, we're not expecting them to make these official statements in public, but we expect a lot of lobbying to be carried out behind the scenes. Let's not forget that today we were supposed to see the U.S. Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, as well as Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, come into Israel, but that visit has been cancelled. And many are saying that this cancellation could reflect a tension in the how is the war going to unfold between the U.S. and Israel. Let's not forget that since the beginning of the war, the goals did not fully align between what the U.S. wanted from this war and what Israel wanted. And Israel kept reiterating that they want to keep operating until they eliminate the Iranian, what they call existential threat, as well as pounding the regime's facilities, military facilities, nuclear facilities, as well as oil facilities, which is also another reason why the U.S. administration has been showing concerns, according to media reports, because they believe that when Israel hits these oil facilities, that could trigger ordinary and usual any Iranian who's affected by this could lobby behind their lobby around and support their government, which is something that it's not necessarily what the U.S. and Israel want. The U.S., while President Trump has mentioned the regime change at the beginning of the war, but it was absent from from the latest messages from Donald Trump. So this seems to be an issue that is at that both parties differ on, and it will be seen how the Israelis are going to try and convince Trump to continue with this war, which is something that Israel has said it wants to do.
Yeah, and the Iranians also continuing with their attacks on Israel, Nida, across several areas of Israel. Tell us about what's been happening and what impact this is having on people's lives.
Well, yesterday we saw 2 Israelis being killed in these Iranian missiles that were sent into Israel. One of them has exploded, according to Israeli authorities, in 6 different locations. We are talking about cluster munitions, warheads that, when they are intercepted, they explode, and the remnants of them splinter all across the area they're in. And that's why we've seen 2 Israelis killed and many others being taken to hospitals. According to the Israeli Ministry of Health, around 199 people have been hospitalized just in the past 24 hours, and 4 of those have critical or serious injuries. In general, there is this worry that not all missiles are being intercepted, but also drones that are coming from Hezbollah's way into Israel, with certain times the Israelis announcing the failure of the alarm systems to detect these drones or to stop them from infiltrating further into communities in northern Israel. For the Israeli army, it says that it had been undermining the powers of Hezbollah, that these anti-tank missiles that they have, as well as these drones, have been more powerful than they had anticipated. But this could be seen also as part of the Israeli attempts to push deeper into southern Lebanon. And we've seen that indeed with the Israeli army's continued threats to all Lebanese living in southern Litani River to evacuate their homes and go to up north.
Thank you, Nida, for that. Nida Ibrahim in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank.